Welcome to Mission Imperfect, the podcast about finding your own path, your own way, and embracing the imperfection of the journey.
We're your hosts, life coaches, former HR professionals, and mums, Kirsty and Kathryn.
We love to discuss the topics that come up time and time again for our coaching clients and which affect us all, from things like acceptance and boundaries to values and well-being and everything in between.
Each episode ends with a question for you and us to reflect on. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to grab a cuppa and a biscuit and join us in getting lost in finding ourselves.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Mission Imperfect. We have another special guest episode for you today, and I am joined by Amy Downs, who is the content wizard, and we're going to be talking about all things social media. And I'm so delighted to have this as a topic because I'm not going to lie, I have a slightly love-hate relationship with social media, which I'm sure we'll come on to, but I think I'm not alone in this. So welcome, Amy, to the podcast. Do you just tell
Hi.
everyone a little bit why the content wizard as your name? I'm very curious to know where did that come from? And we might have some
Well,
other
there is a bit
references
of a
as well.
long-winded story to that. But I will try and keep it succinct. But essentially, it's come from me and my background. I was slightly too old for the Harry Potter books. I was slightly ahead of the generation that grew up with it, but my little sister loved them. And she got me very much into them. I think it was around about when the third film was released and the fifth book. And that to this day is my favorite book. I just think it really got me into the series. But the point is, I got very much into the Harry Potter series and it started to become a huge part of my life. And the reason was, I think there was a bit of escapism out in there. The fantasy world and getting caught up in that, but very much the morals behind it of doing good, making a difference in the world, being there for other people, and that really like resonated with me and started to motivate me and make me feel very positive about doing the right thing for other people and making a difference in the world. And that I know that there is a whole other topic of conversation we could have around the Potter universe at the moment. But I suppose the reason I say this straight out is that fully aware of that and not comfortable with the conversations that Joe Rowling has been having. However, itself has decided kind of had a really big impact on me and my life. So because of that, my a good friend who I used to work with introduced me to her husband's best friend. And the reason behind it was that he was a massive Harry Potter fan as well. So Luke and I, who is now my husband, bonded over Harry Potter. We named our eldest son Harry, so obviously after Potter. We got engaged at the studio tour. We had a Harry Potter themed wedding. My second son is called James, which is also James Potter. So it's a running theme. My study at the moment is a Harry Potter themed study. So when it came to naming my business, it made sense for me to have that as a continuing theme throughout the business. And what I really, really wanted was to carry on that idea of how much of an impact that story had had on me, how much it inspires me, but also this idea of helping other people and doing things for good to make a good difference in the world. And that is where we come to social media, because I firmly believe that although a lot of us have a negative relationship with social media, it can be positive, it can be used for so many good things. And a lot of us lose that because it is such a negative place to be. And there are, I believe, ways that we can, as a society almost, make it a more enjoyable, happy place to be so that we can connect with others and make a difference in the world. So that is the reason that I wanted to go with the Content Wizard's name, was this idea of transforming social media. There's a big mission to it, not just helping people learn what to write on their pages.
Gosh, I love that. I didn't know quite how invested you were in Harry Potter, but and I can see the running thread, and I actually love. I have seen a number of your social media posts, and I love how you talk about. You'll say things like transfiguration. If people have read the books, they'll know these sort of little references, and they fit really nicely. But the
Thank you.
message that I love that you're sharing today is, yes, we're talking about social media today, but we want to talk about the healthy relationship with it. And I think you really hit the nail on the head when you said perhaps we've lost sight of that a little bit. And I know personally, my own experience is quite topsy turvy with it. Sometimes I do see the good in it and I like it, and it is nice for the connection. But I also feel a lot of connection seems to have got lost. We get an awful
Yes.
lot more, advertising, and like I feel like almost like I'm being manipulated a little bit by it. But then I think, is it because am I allowing myself to be? Anyway, we're probably going to get into all of this. But before we get stuck into all of that, tell us a little bit about how you ended up being so passionate about social media and the well-being side of it, and how it's led you to doing what you do now.
Honestly, it's from personal experience. So go back 15 years or so ago, maybe not quite, well, maybe actually as long as that. I look, I was that generation who I was in uni when Facebook hit big. So we were the generation that first used it. We were the generation that it has just become second nature for us to have a Facebook. And even now, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I check my Facebook for no reason
Ah,
what it
okay.
just is a weird habit. And I know there's a lot of people who say it's the worst thing you could do is start the day off with social media, but I do. I don't know what it is. That is the first thing that I think of. Or if I've been in the cinema, the first thing I will do is go on Facebook to check what notifications I've got when I come out. So for me, it's been ingrained in me for a long time. That then developed into Twitter. So the background for me is that 15 years ago, I moved from Cambridge up to Yorkshire. So it was a massive change. I left behind friends, family, everybody that I knew and completely started again. One of the big things I left behind was I was a season ticket holder at my favourite football club in Ipswich. And that was a huge part of my life. So moving up here, I lost the social side of that and the
Mm.
community, and I found that really, really difficult. But Twitter became a comfort for me because I was able to go online and chat with people that knew the thing that I was passionate about, and I could chat for hours with people who were just as passionate as me, and it felt like it didn't matter that it wasn't real life because I still had them there to talk to. And to this day, I have good friends that I have met on Twitter. I've just been to Scarborough, and two friends who I met from Twitter had come up to Scarborough. They do it every year. They come up to stay in Scarborough from Suffolk. They are very dear friends of mine. And I have another friend who lives in Ipswich, in Leeds with me, near me, and he is an Ipswich fan. So we go to games together, and we've known each other from Twitter. I also got a lot of work opportunities from it. I was asked to become do a regular, what's the word I'm looking for, column in an Ipswich magazine. I was asked to regularly create articles for the local paper down there. I've been on a football podcast more recently that's produced by Sky. That has all come from becoming known on Twitter. So it had become a huge, huge part of my life that influenced both personal and my career. Unfortunately, it all went Pete Tong. It went a bit mad. And I often describe social media as a dementor. So for those who are familiar with who are not
You get
familiar
another
with the Harry
reference.
Potter reference, the dementors are the scary creatures that suck happiness out of you. And the punishment in the end is that they suck out your soul. And that's very simplifying it, but the easiest way to explain it. And for me, it feels like social media does that. It sucks out, it forces you in, and it sucks out all the happiness. It drains all of your joy and your motivation. Um, and that is the point that I got to with Twitter. Unfortunately, I allowed myself to get dragged into a lot of arguments politically, because I would say I'm left-leaning, but a lot of the football fans are more right-leaning, and it got very personal. And there were points where it really genuinely impacted my mental health. My anxiety in 2019, it was the election year when it was Jeremy Corbyn versus Boris Johnson. And I was very emotionally invested in Labour being, winning that year. And it was very, very, very challenging, um, being told you're an idiot all the time and
Mm.
having to, question everything. But some of the stuff dates back to way, way back, purely for me having an opinion on something football related. And because I was very argumentative, I was very defensive. I knew I stand up for myself. I always do. And it didn't come across well on social media. So I had people personally attacking me. I had sort of, what's the word, anonymous accounts. Actually, there was somebody who I knew who did it as well, but coming onto my Facebook, taking photos of my children and putting that up on social media, saying, I
Gosh.
can't believe she's a mum. I feel sorry for those children. And what really hurt was, at the time, I was talking about how much I was struggling with postnatal depression. So that
Mm.
was, they'd put on social media, I can't believe she's a mum. She's an awful mum. And that just, all of your worst fears, they would pick up on, or they would just say it as an insult, but in your head you're thinking, well, they're right. And it just really dragged me to like my lowest points, literally. And that was really hard because I was struggling with being a mum, and so having to try and pick yourself up every day to look after your little boy, but not being able to because you're struggling from the depression and anxiety that social media has caused. So it's very much, I don't know if it was the cause of it, but it certainly made everything worse. And I think that's what underlies my passion for helping other people not get to that point and find the positives. So get back to that idea of my dearest friends come from social media, not just Twitter, but I've got Facebook now, people
Yeah.
I know on Instagram. Um, I know I've met people online. I know that I am making a difference to other business owners through my social media. And there is this idea of, actually you can get so many opportunities, from, I've been featured in the media, but there's also, collaborations like us two and things like that that help you change the world in your own way. So I want to help people focus on that rather than being dragged down, not necessarily by being trolled, but even just when you're scrolling. Um, there was a post this morning, which was about something Keir Starmer had said. And not that I'm a supporter of Keir Starmer, but anyway, the comments were all slagging him off and backing reform. And I'm not even going to discuss whose opinion is right or wrong, but the arguing and the
Mm.
insults people were throwing at each other, it drags you down. And
Yeah.
the trouble is, as you said earlier, because I've clicked on those comments and had a read of them, the algorithm thinks that's what I want to see. So I will now see more of the Daily Mirror's posts. So you can get yourself trapped into this own cycle. I feel like I'm covering loads and loads of different topics
Yeah.
that
No,
actually we
this is,
probably want to discuss more. But
yeah.
that is generally where it has come from, is that I
Yeah.
personally have had terrible use of social media, and I had to change it. So the moment it all changed was, my husband and I were out in York for Valentine's Day, and I'd had a couple of wines and I was checking in on the football. I was out for a vape and I was checking my phone while I was out there, and I saw a comment about a player that I really like. There was a post about him, him being rubbish. So I made a tongue-in-cheek comment about, at least he's good looking, and it blew up. It went viral. Loads of accounts shared it. It even got reported to the football club. So in the meantime, behind the scenes, what they didn't realise is I was working with the club on the Her Game 2 campaign, which is about trying to eradicate sexism from the game of from football. Something I've been passionate about and spoken out about for years. And they had to pull an interview, which we'd recorded and done, but they had to pull it as part of the campaign because I had made a sexist comment about this player. It was tongue in cheek. It's something that face to face I say to my mates all the time. Oh yeah, well, he's quite cute. It doesn't mean anything. It isn't me judging him for his looks at all, but that one post did, out of
Yeah.
context, look awful. And
Yeah.
I realised that actually I need to start taking control of my own destiny here. And that was the moment when I knew that something drastically had to change. And I think that actually that moment could happen in many forms. It could be, you're getting trolled and you don't enjoy it, or you catch yourself having spent 2 hours without realising, just mindlessly scrolling. Um, your child asking you to put your phone down and focus on them. I've had that a few times, I can tell you. What that moment in your head when you think, hang on, I'm not getting the best out of this. And my argument is, if it was anything else in the world, would you carry on doing it?
Yeah.
I used to volunteer for the PTA, but I reached a point where I was like, I cannot give my all to everything else and the PTA. And I wasn't enjoying it. So I had to take a decision that I had to step back from that. And I feel like social media is the same. You have to think about what you're getting out of it and is it worth it? And if it is, what can you do to make it worthwhile, basically?
Yeah. Do you know what I think? And thank you so much for your honesty with everything that you've shared, because I think that's been so enlightening. And I think it's really shown the difference between, I guess, social media and online life and presence as opposed to
Yeah,
an in-person life and presence, and what we might say behind a screen, the safety of a screen, as opposed to what we might say in real
definitely.
life, and also how it's interpreted. And I think you've shown it does have this possibility of being a force for good and positivity. You make connections and you've then translated them into real life, and that's the thing, it actually came off social media and became a real life connection on the really
Yeah,
positive end of the scale. And yet on the very negative end of the scale, people feel that they can hide behind the keyboard and probably say things that they would never say in real life. So at the time of recording, Wimbledon is on at the moment. I don't know if you're a fan, but I was really shocked to hear. So one of the players, a British player, she's called Katie Boulter, she released last week about some of the trolling she's had online. So I think she's the GB number 2 in the women's game, but she's had some
yeah,
horrid comments online, death threats, really horrible things said about her. And I'm just like, wow, we just wouldn't say these things in real
yeah,
life. And I was shocked by that. I suppose, why am I totally surprised why people can be so vindictive and hateful behind a keyboard? But I think it's because it's not real life, is it? In the sense of,
yeah,
you probably would not say that to somebody's face. And yet social media is such a big part of our lives. It's so easily available. Like, even, just despite what you've shared, you said you do still have the impulse to pick up your phone in the morning and check. However, I imagine you've sort of got quite a lot of caveats and boundaries around it. And maybe it
definitely.
doesn't always take that significant event. Like you've just described a really significant event that happened for you that changed your
Yeah,
perspective and relationship with social media. And for a lot of us listening, we might not have something that extreme, but we can still ask ourselves some of those questions that you just posed at the end, like, what am I really doing this for? My instinct might be to pick it up and check, but what am I really looking for? And are there other smaller signs in my life that I might want to work on this relationship? Like someone saying, are you still on your phone? And it's been like an hour and you're just down some kind of doom scrolling hole, and it's not doing any
exactly.
harm, but you've just led yourself off on a total tangent because it is smart, isn't it? I mean, I don't think I'm wrong in saying this. Like, if you've clicked on something or shown any sense of interest, it knows and it will show you more of that. And I personally, I'll just share an example here. I've got sucked into these terrible thread of posts before, and I've had to stop. It's these ones where people say, "Am I the idiot?" And they share a story, and people
Oh,
say, "Yes, you're the idiot," or "No, you're
yeah.
not." It's probably using a different word. But and and I'm sure a lot of them are actually even fake
Yeah,
stories, because I'm like, these can't be real, right?
yes,
And but the whole point is to provoke some kind of reaction and outrage. But these are people I don't know. These are stories that are probably 2 years old. why am I getting embroiled in this? But because I've shown an interest and clicked and read through on one, because it's hooked me in with this lovely, enticing storyline, I get shown more of them. And I've had to say to myself, don't do this. And luckily,
Yeah,
they seem to have come out of my feed again for now, because I am, I guess, fueling this for myself. And I'm sure this is something that our listeners can
100%.
identify with. And I'm sure you've probably noticed through your own, journey with social media that you can kind of shape how it features in your life. Because what we want
Yes.
to talk about today ultimately is a healthier relationship, isn't it? We're not saying don't have one, because that might not be realistic. And we've also said it can do some wonderful things.
Yeah.
So maybe let's focus on those. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your approach with social media now, and if you've got any ideas or tips you can share with us, that'd be fantastic.
Definitely. And absolutely. And that is the whole reason that I wanted to come and chat with you, because I knew that this was something that isn't spoken about enough.
I agree.
This idea of actually we do have the chance to make this a better thing. It doesn't just have to be our social media is terrible and we just carry on letting it be. We can make it better for ourselves. I think the first thing that I would say is actually social media it's a kind of addiction in the way that I don't know enough about this scientifically or medically, but the idea of dopamine hits, it brings you
Mm,
that quick gratification. And that whether it be that you post and you get lots of likes and that gives you a bit of a dopamine hit, or whether it be that you watch a reel that makes you laugh and that gives you the dopamine hit, we keep going back for that, whatever it is that we are enjoying. And it is designed to be addictive. It is designed to keep attracting us back in. When it first started, Facebook in particular, the idea was about connecting. Facebook was set up to connect with people from your school, your university, etc. It has grown and grown to be more focused on money. And that's where, as you know, I specialize in working with business owners. But from a business point of view, you become focused on making sales from it rather than making connections. And from a consumer point of view, you get fed up of being hit with sales all the time. So it just becomes like you're both batting against each other rather
mm,
than trying to enjoy the presence. But the point is that it makes it addictive. Like you say, the stuff you engage with is what will then keep being showed from to you. So the first step is A, don't be too hard on yourself, because this is something that is ingrained in our lives. But the fact that if you're listening to this, nodding along and thinking, yeah, I do it, I use it far too much, recognize that that's a really good thing. Because a lot of people use it for escapism and out of habit and haven't stopped to think, am I doing this for a worthwhile reason for me? So recognizing that it is an addiction, it is an addictive trait, it's an addictive habit, and that is because of the way it is set up. It is designed to keep dragging you in. Um, but then this is where I really like this idea of mindfulness and how that then applies to social media. So, in the same way that you would sit down and meditate, if you sit down to meditate, you might think about how your head is feeling, how your hands are feeling, how your leg, and you work through yourself and you recognize your emotions. Learning to do that while you are scrolling is so, so important. So, out of habit, I know I pick up my phone. I just always do. But this morning, I recognised that that Daily Mirror post, I could feel it in my chest that I was getting anxious and I was getting cross at what people were saying and I was getting worried about people like about Nigel Farage becoming our Prime Minister and all of this stuff. So I had to stop and I put it down. And what I actually did was opened an email that somebody sent me yesterday that made me happy. And that brought me back to, okay,
mm,
what am I doing today? What are my tasks today? And I actually, since the school run, I haven't been on social media, which is very rare for me. But starting to recognize when you are feeling negative emotions, being mindful of how you are feeling when you're on social media. And then what you can do with that is use that to guide your usage. So I feel happy when I am in certain networking groups on Facebook. there's the one, Parenting Business Connections, where you and I met, Kathryn. I know that if I go in there, I'm guaranteed a nice chat. I'm guaranteed some posts that make me smile. And it's also good for my business. So I will go into that group and I will have a look. There might be days where I'm feeling like I need a bit of motivation around a certain topic. So the one that springs to mind is equality and inclusion. That's a massive one for me, particularly gender equality. And there's a group that I really like that talks about that a lot. Now, some days that can feel quite negative, but if I'm feeling like I need a bit of advice and motivation around that topic, then I'll go in there because it inspires me. So it's recognizing the areas in your social media that make you happy, even just down to what platform do you enjoy. If you don't like Facebook, come off it. Don't bother with it. If you don't enjoy TikTok because there's too much and the videos are too hard to make or whatever, don't feel forced to do it just because everybody's there and you feel like you should
Yeah.
be. So it might be that you really enjoy LinkedIn because it's very professional, or it might be the complete opposite, like me, you might find it a bit daunting. So don't feel like, find the places where you enjoy being and that light you up and potentially could help you with what you want to do to make a difference in the world. That might be with your business, but it might be personally as well. There's PTA groups on Facebook. If something you're passionate about is being part of the PTA, you could go and find that. Whatever your hobby is, you could go and find groups around that. I've got an Ipswich Town group that I love going on. Um, so finding what lights you up amongst social media, not just what Mr. Zuckerberg has decided he wants you to see.
Yes. Oh, do you know what? This is so interesting, and I knew I'd get a lot out of this episode because I'm just thinking it is vast, and that we can't control. We also can't control what other people say and do.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm in a local community group, and there are some wonderful posts in there, and you get things like, "Oh, this event is on." I'm like, "Oh, great! I didn't know about that." Or you get, lost and found, and I found my cat, and all this kind of stuff, and I love all of that. And yet, then you'll get the odd post thrown in, which is very critical or whatever it might be, and you can't control that. But you can control, where am I going to bother spending my time?
Yeah.
Which groups am I going to be part of? Because groups are massive now, aren't they? So this is, for example, particularly Facebook. You can be in so many different groups, but I'm just thinking I can choose which ones I might want to dip in and out of,
Yeah.
which ones maybe it's time to leave because I've noticed they've taken a turn in a direction
Yeah.
that's not really for me anymore. I can do a lot more, I think, to shape it because it's a funny one because I still very much believe you're right. There is still so much positive. For me personally, I've noticed so much more of the negative, but I've got to recognize what's within my gift to
Yeah.
change that, including I'm just going to put the phone down. I love that you said that. You just thought you saw something, it brought out response in you. So what you're saying about check in with your response, because I think personally, a lot of us, phone comes out, social media on, you flick through, and you're not honestly thinking much of anything.
No,
I don't think I'm
exactly.
alone in saying that. It's
Yeah.
literally sort of like consume, not even really consume, because I'm not engaging. I'm not really. You're just kind of flicking through, reading, and I'm not necessarily feeling much at all.
Yeah.
So why am I doing it? So that's a real insight for me, and definitely something I'm going to take away. We'll come on to at the end, rounding up maybe some tips for people, but
I think that's
I do
again
think
where it
that's
taps into
interesting.
mindfulness, isn't it? We can be
Mm.
going about our days stressing in our heads. I've just had this morning, like my July to-do list. I hate the start of the month because you start to think about all the things you've got to do
Yeah.
for the rest of the month. So my July to-do list just feels hugely overwhelming at the moment. And we all do it every single day. We just plod along and things start to become overwhelming and take over. But the whole point in mindfulness is taking yourself out of that to give yourself the space to understand how you're feeling, process what's going on, and figure out a way forward. And I really like this idea of bringing that into social media. We all doom scroll because social media is a form of escapism for us. It is a habit and it is a way of just stepping out of life. It is 100% something I use when I'm feeling overwhelmed to take myself out of the real world. And I think that's why a lot of people make nasty
Yeah.
comments and things like that, because we use it to get out of the real world. But the trouble is, exactly as you've summed up perfectly, it does have an impact on the real world. So we need to make sure we have that connection. But that's why I like this idea of trying to be mindful around your usage. If mindfulness is something that already matters to you, then how can you apply that to your social media usage?
Yeah. Perfect. I love this so much. So I feel like we could talk about this all day, but
Yeah,
let's
definitely.
give people there's so much to it, isn't there? Perhaps we can end talking about, I know you've got a couple of really practical tips for people to get that relationship to be that little bit healthier. And because sometimes it is the simple stuff and we forget. So I think it's helpful just to give people this little reminder of how to have that healthier relationship.
Absolutely, definitely. So my favorite one that I sometimes share, I like to share on social media, but it's such a simple idea, but it has genuinely been game changing for me. If there's something I need to focus on for work, or if I've said to myself, I want to spend a couple of hours focused on my children, I put my phone on charge in a different room. So if
Mm,
I'm in my study, I'll put my phone on charge in the kitchen. If I'm in here in the living room with the kids, I'll put my phone on charge upstairs. Having it completely separate from me removes that temptation to check and just to look at the notifications. I won't know if it's going off. It won't because I can't hear it, I can't see it. So putting a barrier up between you
yeah,
and your phone.
a
Um,
literal barrier.
yeah, literally. And I find that that's been game changing. I find that that really works, and it particularly helps if I've got a piece of work that I need to focus on. So once we're done, I need to go do some content for a client, and I will make sure that I do not look at my phone again until that job is done. And actually just having that boundary. But also the other side of that is allowing yourself, if I've had a couple of hours playing with the kids, let's be honest, I'm drained and worn out by the end of it. It's okay to sit and have 10, 15 minutes having a look on Facebook, having watching some Instagram reels to perk me up again. It's fine to have some time, like allowing yourself to have that. But I find that's my favorite boundary is putting it in a separate room. Um, the other one, obviously, we've talked a lot about mindful scrolling, and making sure that when you are consuming content, make sure it is the kind that you want to consume.
Yeah.
So the best way that you can train the algorithm, I'm using air quotes because I hate that so many gurus reckon you could train the algorithm in so many like strange, random ways. But the way you train the algorithm is by showing social media what it is you want to see. So if something annoys you, clicking on that is going to make the algorithm think you like it. So
Yeah.
it's going to show you more. What you need to do is say, no, actually, I want to see more cat videos. I want to see more content from my friends. So I'm going to engage with theirs to show you that's what I want more of. And that it's not going to work 100% because there is sponsored posts and other things to consider within the algorithm. So I suppose there is a level of if there is something in there that it's what you said about whether you allow it to annoy you and not getting frustrated by, ugh, why am I being shown that post again? Just okay, scroll on
Yeah.
by. It's
Yeah. Go
just
by.
it's such a
Yeah.
simple thing that is very difficult for us all to do. But once you get into the habit of, no, that's not what I'm here to do today. That's what I try and say to myself. That is not relevant to work. I'm going to scroll past. That is not one of my friends. I'm going to scroll past. There is an element of cleaning out your timeline as well. So, like you said, there's a lot of groups that you're in that aren't necessarily relevant now. If one pops up and you think, oh, I'm not really bothered about that anymore, come out of it, unfollow them. If someone posts something you don't like, block them. They're never going to know. It doesn't really matter. So that is about cleaning up your timeline and making sure that what you've got is what you want to engage with and reinforcing that by engaging stuff with stuff that makes you happy. And then along that line, putting content out there that makes you happy and will make other people happy as well. So I will always share photos from when I've been to Scarborough. People are probably fed up of seeing me going to Scarborough by this point, and a lot of the pictures will be exactly the same. It's the kids on the South Bay beach building sandcastles, but it's happy content. It's me trying to make social media a positive place and sharing with my friends and family what we've been up to. So you can, it's such a corny phrase, but be the change you want to
Yeah.
see rather than putting a post up that is moaning or slagging somebody off. Put something positive. If there is something you don't feel happy about, let's take J.K. Rowling as an example. Don't go out there moaning about people who are supporting her. Think about the topic and what difference you can make. What knowledge, what experience do you have? Because that is making a positive change rather than trying to drag people down, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it makes perfect sense. I appreciate this is quite a tricky one to navigate because when you have a difference of opinion, if you're doing the
Yes,
positive supporting on one side, it will be perceived as a negative. It's particularly when it comes to things like politics, global economics,
absolutely.
things that are going on in the world. It is difficult to navigate. I appreciate that for sure. But I really like what you said about if you're going to be a contributor on social media, make it in a positive fashion. Because I know sometimes it's a sad reality, isn't it? We're more likely to leave, like, I don't know if this is still true, but when we have a bad experience, you might leave a negative review
Yeah,
for something, like say for a restaurant or something,
yeah.
or customer service somewhere, as opposed to, oh my God, this person was brilliant and it was a really positive experience. And I think if we recognize maybe that's a little bit what's been happening with social media, no wonder there's a bit more of a negative skew or slide to what we're seeing and reading. And I don't really want to see all these things about, oh, here's my dash cam footage of someone hitting me. I know that's bad and that's happened to you, but there's very little, to be honest, I can do about it or
There's no
or influence
productive
the outcome.
reason to share it. How, like, there are some. I must confess, one of my guilty pleasures is crash videos, but I like the driving instructor ones because they're educational, they're teaching people. There's always ones about merging and whether you should skip the queue, and actually you should
Yeah.
skip the queue and merge in turn. And I've always felt like I'm doing something wrong when I do that, but now I feel justified because actually that is the right way to drive. So there is crash videos for the sake of likes. And there are crash videos that actually are educational and they're being put out there to make a difference for other people. And I feel like that's a better content to engage with rather than, oh my God, I bet it was a woman driver or something silly like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like, and reading the negativity or um so I think I've lost my completely lost the track of what we
Oh no,
started
so I
talking
think I,
about
I think I
then.
threw in the tangent by just we're just talking about the type of content you might see and it having perhaps a negative or a positive slant or you
Yes.
expressing an interest in it. I think that's one of the key
Yeah.
takeaways for me today. I've just found there's one other tip that literally popped into my head when, and this is someone else that I think it might actually be Mel Robbins. She said you can turn your phone onto grayscale and it's so much less interesting to look at. Like if you know you're really addicted to picking up your phone and looking at things, if you turn it onto grayscale, it's so much less attractive. You'll spend less time doing it. Quite radical, but be really interesting to know if anyone wants to give that one a try and see if they have a. I've not tried it myself, I have to say, but if I
That's
if I did feel the
that's actually
need,
a boundary that I use. 10 o'clock at night, I am thinking about moving it earlier to 9. My phone automatically goes onto sleep mode, and that
hmm,
is it turns grey. So if I'm watching something on Netflix, it goes grey, and then I find it easier to get to sleep because I am lulling off, but you haven't got the lights like
this sort of stimulation.
sparking
Yes,
everything in your
absolutely.
eyes and your brain. That's an absolutely great idea. There's a level of would you lose some of the joy? Like my Scarborough photos won't look as pretty if they're not in colour. Do you know, just things like that. But yes, why not do it when you're during the working hours or at night time to help you get off to sleep? And
Yes, or if you just don't want the distraction, I
yes,
think as with all things, it's about trying to perhaps find combination of things, trying things, seeing what works for
definitely.
you. Because I think, to be honest, we could all benefit from having a healthy relationship with social media. So I think we've acknowledged both a light and a dark side to it today, like the force for good, the distraction, perhaps the escapism. but also there is that slightly darker side we just need to be aware of, but we can sort of help stop the slide that way. I think that's been the key takeaway for today. So we always end our episodes with a question, and today's question for the listeners is, what step, even a small one, might you be able to take to improve your social media well-being? And I've taken so much away from today, and I think one of the things I've really taken on board is you said about it being this form of escapism, and you're absolutely right. It's so easy to, I'll make a cup of tea and you have a quick
Yes.
scroll, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I'm going to do two things. I think one, I'm just going to be very mindful about what am I scrolling, what is it giving me, actually think about it for a moment rather than just be indulging in the scroll. It'll probably take a bit of practice. But the other thing is, for me, a form of escapism is I love reading, and I will easily not find time for it. I'm actually going to start carrying my book around because it
Genius.
would be nearer me, as because the phone is always there. I can pick it up unless we do your tactic of putting it in the other room. Whereas I could read a couple of pages. If you think about it, if you scroll through a few posts, I could have read a couple of pages, and I also know that the book is kind of like on my side, if you know what I mean. There's not going to be
Absolutely.
the nasty surprises. So I think that's going to be a really good tactic for me. So thank you so much, Amy. This has been so enlightening. We will make sure to put all your details in the show notes so people can find you, learn more about you, and see how you can support people further, because I know you have a whole raft of skills to do, not just with social media, but supporting small business owners with their content. But of course, we use social media a lot, don't we, for our content, and we want to
Yes.
use it wisely. So thank you so much for today.
Thank you
It's
for
been a
having
great
me.
conversation, and
One of my
we
favourite
will see you all
topics. I'm so
soon.
glad we got to talk about
Yeah, no,
it.
I knew it was going to be an interesting one, and I thought it'd be interesting. How long will we be talking about social media? And I think we could have gone on for a long time,
We
because I
could
think it is
keep
something that
going.
everyone can recognize. So if anyone would like to share anything that they do take away from today about improving
Please
their
do.
social media well-being, or has other tips, then please share them in the comments for us. And we will see you all soon for another episode. Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Mission Imperfect.
Please visit the show notes for details on how to contact us and for any resources we may have on the topic discussed.
Until next time, keep being imperfectly you. No one does it better.